Hey folks, what's up? Thanks for checking out I Suck at Painting. First, I just want to say I'm getting very close to 100 subscribers, which I know is not a huge number. But considering I only have like 3 or 4 videos, it is really surprising and it is super cool. And to everyone who's already subscribed, I just want to say thank you very much. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I like doing these videos and hopefully you guys like to watch them. So before we did some contrast paint orc skin, it was kind of like a mossy green sort of feeling. We're going to do the same thing today with contrast paints and traditional paints. And this time it's going to be more of a brown earth, grungy kind of color. It's not super fast, but it is quite easy. It's pretty much contrast paint and dry brushing. And that's pretty much it. So let's get started. Alright, so this video, our orc flesh, is going to be very similar to the previous one, which I'll link to up top. This is the final result we're going to get out of this one. As you can see, compared to the previous one, is much more brown, much more earthy. Again, it's pretty easy. It's not particularly fast, but the results are cool. The colors we're going to use for this one are going to be Druchii Violet, and then for the contrast paints, it's going to be Plague Bearer Flesh and Orc Flesh with some contrast medium. Then our regular paints are going to be Warboss Green. We're going to mix the XV88 and the Kislev Flesh. And then our glaze is going to be Waywatcher Green. If you don't have these colors, maybe you use all Vallejo stuff. For the Warboss Green, you could use Goblin Green. The XV and Kislev mix, you could use something like this Flat Earth and Ivory. The Flat Earth is darker than the XV, and the Ivory is brighter than the Kislev Flesh, but mixed together, they're pretty much about the same. And if you don't have this Waywatcher Green glaze, you can make that basically. Use the game ink and mix that up with a bunch of Lamian medium or glaze medium, whatever. The results on both of those are pretty much the same. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to wash the entire surface with Druchii Violet. And there's nothing special to this. We're just slapping it on the whole thing. The only thing that is going to be a little bit different is I'm going to assume his arm orientation is going to be straight up and down like this, and his gun is going to be up a little bit. So after we wash this on, we're going to take a Q-tip and just pull off the wash on what would be the highest spots according to where the light falls. So I'm just going to get this big old brush. We're going to slap this on. Nothing magical about this step. Just make sure we get it everywhere and get it into the recesses. And then before it dries, we're going to pull it off with the Q-tip. So we want to think about where the light will be falling, and we'll just take it off those areas. It's not going to be real dramatic, but it will help in the end. Oops, missed a spot. And that's pretty much it. We'll let this dry and come back and move on to the next step. Alright, this is where we are at after the Druky Violet dries. On to the bulk of the color. So our contrast is going to be 3 parts Plague Bearer Flesh, 1 part Orc Flesh, and 1 part contrast medium. This is going to be our main skin color. So just mix this up and slap it on pretty much just like we did before. It's going to look really weird at this point, but that's okay. It's actually supposed to look like this, so don't worry. It's okay to go ahead and slop a little extra in the recesses to darken that up a bit. It's not going to hurt anything. Alright, looks like I got everything except here. And we'll go ahead and let this dry. And we'll come back for the next part. Okay, one thing I forgot here. So we're going to use this contrast paint mixture again. Just like in the last video, we're going to take a little bit of paper towel, some water, just get that thing wet. And we're going to lay it on top, put a pot on it. That's going to keep it dry, or keep it wet till we need to use it again. Alright, contrast is pretty much dry at this point, and this is kind of what we have. It's very uneven, it's very rough, which to me, you know, being orcs, I don't really see as a big deal. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like to do orcs sometime with nice smooth blends, but I mean, come on, they're fungus creatures. They shouldn't or necessarily be the same skin tone from individual to individual. Also, even on one orc, I don't see where their skin has to be, you know, really smooth blends, and being a little mottled just kind of seems natural. Alright, so our next step, we're going to go back to our contrast paint. Switch to a little bit smaller brush. And just like before, we're going to kind of paint the transitions back in. We're going to kind of smooth this transition to the dark a little bit. It'll take a couple times. You'll have to do a few passes on it. But we're basically just going into the shadows with our main base color. And just like with a regular glaze, you want to go towards where you want the color to be strongest. Our next step is going to be using the Waywatcher green as a filter. It's going to kind of pull most of this together. So like I said, you'll have to do this a couple times. You can already see it's a little bit better, but we will have to go back in and do it again. So I will continue on with that and come back when that is finished, and we'll do the filter. Alright, so we've painted our transitions back in, and this seems to be dry. This is pretty much where we're at this point. And now we're going to use our Waywatcher to filter this whole thing. This is just going to boost the green color a little bit and kind of tie all of these colors together. Now with a filter, you just want to get it on and not let it really pool. because this is being a lighter green. If it pulls up in the darker areas, it's going to look really weird. Now after you do this filter, this glaze is, glaze colors, they're kind of delicate, so you may want to slap some varnish down after that. Wouldn't be a bad idea at all, because you don't really want to pull this up when we're dry brushing. It can happen pretty easily. You can do this as many times as you want until you're happy with it. Really, I'm just trying to reinforce that green feeling a little bit in some of the areas where the contrast was a little thin. On the raised areas. But this is totally up to you how many times you want to go over this. Once that varnish is dry, I will come back and we'll get onto the dry brushing section. Alright, with our varnish dry, we're going to go on to dry brushing. Our first one is going to be the Warboss green. You can use any green that's similar. So Vallejo Goblin green would be good too. And nothing magical about this either. I'm going to use this makeup brush. It's very soft. And this is just regular old dry brushing. Just to take away a little bit of that modeling. We don't want to take it all away, because I think it's kind of cool. It might not be your speed, and that's fine. But I like the variations in the orc skin sometimes. So like I said in the intro, I'm getting very, very close to 100 subscribers, which is crazy. I know it's not, you know, Vince Venturella numbers or Tabletop Minions numbers or anything like that, but I honestly didn't think it would happen so quickly. And it's nice to know that people are finding these useful. And for everybody who has subscribed, thank you very much. It's super cool. If you enjoy these, this is your first time here, you know, feel free to subscribe as well. I'll keep doing some videos. Let's get some of this into the palette. And we're just going to take a little bit of this XV88 and just dark it down a tad. And you'll notice we still have our contrast paint mix staying fresh in here, because we will use that again for a couple spots. Again, nothing crazy, just regular old dry brush. But we're going to go super light and just on our brightest spots. This may look like too much of a pale beige color, but that's okay. We're going to filter it again at the end. So again, we're just doing this very lightly. You want to go slow and build this up. I got some stray hairs. Okay, that's pretty much it with our brown dry brush done. We can go back with our way stone or way watch or way fair, way whatever green and do our filter. Back to our way watcher green, and we are almost finished. And we are just going to filter again. As you can see that brown dry brush pretty well. But that's okay, because we're going to take care of that right here. This is going to knock it down a little bit. And just like before, we're just going to put it on, but we don't want it to pool in the recesses. We'll probably do this a couple times as well, and that's going to be up to you. How much of the brownish color you want to leave behind. All of this is completely open to your interpretation. and use this simply as a guideline. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and come back after that. Alright, after that filter dried, I went ahead and just went back to our original skin mix and fixed any transitions I didn't like and hit his fingers a little bit between the knuckles. And our very, very last thing to do is to reestablish some of that brownish kind of earthy griminess, and for that we're going to go back to Plague Bear Flesh. And this one we're going to go right out of the pot. I'm actually going to get a smaller brush here. We're going to go right out of the pot, and we're going to use this as a filter also. So we're not going for sloppy pools and thick coats, we're just covering the surface, just like we did with the Waywatcher green. And then this is just a simple filter. And this is going to get that some of that browniness back, but it's going to be, you know, all over instead of what we had with just the dry brush. And this is just real thin. You can do it as many times as you want. I found that 2 coats of this is pretty good, but it's entirely up to you, of course. And this is going to give them a real gross brownish tinge on top of that green, which I think is pretty cool. Again, all of this might not be what you're after for your arcs, and that's fine. I just get a little bored of painting them all the same way every time. So it's fun to mix it up every now and then. And that's pretty much it. So, if you liked this video, you can go downstairs and click all of the things, like the like button, the subscribe button, the share button, the bell button, the random puppy annihilator button. All of those things help, and they are very much appreciated.
I am your Hawks, and I blame society.